Could you please give a little bit of background on the different cars that were in the movie, please?
I'll be more than happy. But maybe, I don't know, I'm just the grandpa.
No, please.
But anyway, those are part of the collection that I have. And the people in the room here that go back a few years probably recognize some of them. The interesting thing about the Chapman car is she went, as you saw up in the credits, she graduated Chapman's film school. Got her this is her master's thesis for getting her master's at Chapman, one of the better film schools in the country, and real proud of her. She got her undergraduate from the University of San Francisco. Ironically, her dad and myself's alma mater in San Francisco. So the Chapman just fit right in. I mean, ironically, and that belonged to H.A. Chapman and ran at the Speedway in 1952, 3 and 4. And I had it back there one year where they let you bring the old cars back and run them around for a while. And I was standing about 30 feet away from the car, and the guy walks over to me and he says, you Tom Malloy? And I go, yeah. He says, I'm H.A. Chapman Jr., and my dad used to own that car. And so I said, we got to go back and take a picture of this. And the reason it was special to me is that in 1954 was the year my dad took me back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the first time, and because his car was running there, Malloy Special, Jimmy Reese was driving it, and Dad's car finished 17th, and to this day I can't find that car. I found the motor out of it, the Offenhauser engine. I found that and have it, and it finished 18th, the Chapman Special, and my dad's car finished 17th, just the way you see it trimmed in the movie. And that may be as close as I ever get to my dad's car. So that's the story on that car. Then you saw the Bell-Lines car. That's a Selness, and it was the first car. I just thought it was a great looking car, and I bought it at the Walters sale at Dayton a few years back, and put it in the Bell-Lines colors when we restored it. That's a total restoration, 100% original car. And I put it in the Bell-Lines because it had a better history as a Bell-Lines car than it did the Walter car. And so I thought that was special. And ironically, Johnny Rutherford, that was his first champ car ride in 1962 at the Hoosier 100. The Howe car, we all know the Howe car, Hell on Wheels, as it was known. Holman, Ober, Walcott was where the acronym came from. They were, Ober and Walcott were friends of her dad's, Mary Holman, who owned the car, and her husband drove it, Elmer George. Huge history there. The Roadster is a Rosie Brazel's car, West Coast, good driver from the West Coast, owned that car. The helmet you did with the medallion on it, somebody remember that? That was Alan Heath. Alan Heath, that was one of his signatures, the silver dollar. I have that helmet. And
that inspired.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the interesting thing, and I should go back to sitting there trying to think, oh, you saw the leader cards set in the back. That was a chassis that Bryant got it at Langhorne, that car. Roger Ward won lots of races in that car. What else was? You saw the midgets there. There was the midget number 20, saw it briefly. That was one of the famous Balch Brothers midgets that Howard Keck owned at one time. Or he actually bought it, I think. No, he owned it and sold it to the Balches, if I remember that. And that's back at the Daytona Motor Speedway at the museum that took over when they built the big place in North Carolina or whatever. The Donnie Paul midget, the yellow one, you saw it briefly at the front. Both 110 offies, both running cars. I think Brenna and her crew probably abused my cars more than.
They all came back in one piece.
It took about a month to get. We took the skin off of it and everything. It was just dirt everywhere, which we knew. And then I should mention, that's my brother Mike's ranch in Lompoc, California, and he was nice enough to grade a track. Rented a blade and graded a track for Brenna. And her grandpa furnished the cars, and my mechanics went up there to make sure everything ran right. The wreck you saw is an old chassis that I have that they took up there and used to make it look when they had the wreck at the start of the movie. But enough about me. It's in my cars.
No, I just want to listen.
The trophy case. Those cases are my trophy cases at my shop, and Brenna did a nice layout of for the credits and things like that. I was thrilled. She'll have to explain, how it all came together. Her love for the movie business, and then how she put it together. I was surprised when this whole thing involved around the cars, but I thought she did a great job. And so I need to hear from my granddaughter.
We'd like to hear from you.
Okay. When I first got this idea of making this film, obviously, I just didn't know if it would be possible. I mean, when you make even though it was my master's program, when you make a student film, there's not a lot of resources that you have. So I didn't know if it would be possible. But when I pitched the idea to my grandpa, I just thought he'd say, at best, he'd think about it. And right when I pitched him the idea, he said, let's do it. And ever since that day, he's been so supportive. So it wouldn't have been possible without him and all his support. And him and Mark and Rob, who are his mechanics, they just made it happen. I mean, filmmaking, especially when you're not at a studio, it isn't possible without the grassroots effort of friends and family. So it all starts from that conversation where by some miracle said yes, because he's a good person and believed in me, and so I will never forget that, and I'll always appreciate that. And like he said, his brother made the track for us, and that was another miracle too, because I didn't know if he'd say yes. He's family, but that's hard to ask someone to come to their property for 2 weeks and completely take over. And he wanted to read the script first, and once he read it, he knew he wanted to help out, and he built that track for us. And a fun story is, his brother, Mike, he's an incredible guy, but he's not a man of many words. He's very thoughtful, and he didn't spend a lot of time chatting to a lot of people, but he loved watching what we were doing when we were shooting, and he was so helpful. And my cousin Tyler was there. So it was a real fun family affair, making it. But at the very last day, I mean, we had a drought in California when we were shooting this, and so that's why it's so brown, which is great for the film. But if you went back a year later, it looked like Ireland. It was rolling green hills. And on the very last day of shooting, gray clouds started rolling in. And we wrapped filming at around 7 p.m. and at 8 o'clock it was pouring rain. And it rained for days and days. And if it had rained during our shoot, we wouldn't have been able to make this movie. And I don't know if I ever told you this, but Uncle Mike said, I know this was my dad looking down on me, waiting. He was holding off the rain until we finished shooting the movie. And so it's fun to be here and tell the story, since it's Emmett, his dad, your dad, my great-grandfather, who's being inducted into the Hall of Fame tomorrow. So, yeah, that's a little about the making of it, if anyone has any questions.
Just before you keep the question, but I mean, remember what you're gonna. But that was at his ranch, and the barn, the shots of the cars was across the street, and they actually had to go over there and clean this barn out for his neighbor in order to use it. But it was a great place.
Great place.
For doing that. And the house you see there, it was a house that's on the property. Mike's home there. He lives in Ventura Keys, and this is his getaway. Probably an hour or so north of Ventura Keys. I didn't hesitate when she asked, because I knew how important this was for her, you know, to do. And I don't know where she was gonna find this junk if you didn't get it from me.
It's a pretty nice jump.
And so I'm, as the whole thing turns out, you're just thrilled to be a part of it and not be an old Scrooge or a humbug guy saying no, which I wouldn't have done anyway. I mean, you take these out and just drive them around the track, but I've done a lot of vintage racing where I'm out there kind of mixing up. Larry has been to see some of my races, and you know, I've had to put a few of them back together, including myself. You know, so I you know, I know what that's all about, and you fix it. You know, if you can't go down to Napa and get it, you got to make it.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm glad the whole thing turned out. And my brother Mike, who's a little kind of a recluse, if I can say it that way, turned out to be the greatest guy.
Incredible.
You know, and his sons, one of his sons in particular, shoot a lot of ads for Ford Motor Company, or he makes them for himself and sells them to Ford and different people, different companies like that. So they're in the film business, and they actually said, you know, that our dad has never allowed us to do what they allowed us to do, which I feel bad about because they're good guys, you know. But it was just I'm just thrilled that things have worked out for Brenna, and just be a part of that. And so, anyway, the question somebody had.
And just to like jump off that, because I know the room will appreciate this, Uncle Mike has a pumpkin patch family celebration, and it just so happened to fall during our shoot days. So it was so great. Everyone was there during one of our shoot days, and against doctor's orders, someone sitting at this table got in one of the cars and drove around the homemade track without a helmet on.
And the one car you saw pushing back, number 25, there's people in the room who that's the famous Cheeseman Offie, that Bob Pancratz. You saw, the Pancratz thing, yeah. We know Wally, and I was surprised when she called it, the Pancratz racetrack. But we're friends to this day, and Bob, his dad, he did all the work on the car downstairs after Dad bought it from J.C. Agajanian. And he built the champ car that I talked about in '54 that I went back to watch. So if I wasn't in school or sleeping, I was at the shop when they built that car. And I'm sure there's a lot of mechanics that work for my dad like that see me dead because I was in their way. You couldn't keep me away from that stuff, and obviously, you know, but it's a disease that I have, but fortunately, our children, Sharon, my wife, is right there in the middle. Our children are normal. Dad's the only one that's screwed up. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry.
I think we had a question back here.
Brenna, how long did it take you guys to shoot the movie?
It took us 10 days to shoot this. We did 6 days of shooting normally and 4 days of stunts. Yeah. Any other questions?
So Brenna, are you working in the film industry now, or?
I am. I'm trying to. You know, when you make a thesis film, the whole goal is for it to be sort of your introduction into the industry, and this certainly was for me because it ended up going on to win a Student Academy Award, which opened a lot of doors for me that I'm trying to sort of follow through right now.
In her category, she won the Bronze Award for, if you know Hollywood, I mean, it was so out of sync, her film in relationship to all the do-good, huggy stuff, environmental things, which won first and second in her category. For her to come in third with that film, I think was quite a deal in itself. From a mechanical standpoint, that showed a lot. So. And she's, I don't know how much you want to share, but just recently she's been involved with interview and things like that. I don't know how much you want to.
Well, I'm interviewing right now there's programs for up and coming directors at studios, and so I'm currently interviewing, and we'll see. I'm also writing a feature and pursuing many different avenues. Hopefully something catches. It's a tough business, you know, it's show business, it's not show art, so you gotta, the rubber has to meet the road at some point, so that's what I'm trying to do.
You've been involved in a number of films though, right? I mean.
Yeah, I've definitely worked on films, and I've worked on a TV show. You know, my mentor is a director, so I've been able to sort of shadow her. But yeah, I've been doing it for about 10 years, so.
Wasn't Roseanne, was it?
It wasn't.
I think we had some other questions back there. Alan?
What year was the first part of it supposed to be? The second part was like about 1958.
Yeah, that's correct. So the
Yeah,
second
because
part
you
was
incorporated songs from 58
Yeah.
with 58 cars. So.
the second part is 59.
59, okay.
Yeah, and the first part is 19.
Somewhere around 47.
I was gonna say, yeah, it goes
46.
back, midget goes back to 40s,
Yeah.
you know, and like the hot rod Rosie's car, same. So it'd be the 40s, late 40s, or
Late
mid to
40s.
late 40s.
It was basically right at the end of World War II is when we timed it out, because that's when racing started picking up again.
Great.
Did you employ stunt drivers?
I did. So Susan Perkiser was the stunt driver for the main character. Lizzie Clark, who plays Annie, she's from England. And because she lives in London, she doesn't have a driver's license because you don't need one in London. So my lead actress actually, she has a driver's license now, but at that time she could not drive a car. So that's some real good acting, I think. But Susan Perkiser, our stunt driver for Lizzie, she said she's driven in, Lamborghini commercials, like all these Fast and Furious movies, so many films, so many commercials. And she says to this day the coolest car she's ever drove is the Chapman Special.
That's
And
awesome.
she said that something she liked about it too is the brake, is it heel brake? Is that right?
Clutch.
The clutch,
Yeah.
the heel clutch.
That's
And
it. It's, you know, instead of pushing it, you know, you just put your heel down. Some of those cars, champ cars, have, you know, hand clutches. But that's one when you push it with your heel. Big long old pedal.
And Susan's tiny. She's about 4'11", so for her to drive that car is pretty
Manual
spectacular.
steering wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said her second favorite car is the Johnny Paul.
Yeah, little midget. Yeah. But it was fun to get them all out and running, and you know, and that, you know, that's tough to do with cars that have starters and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the time it took for my guys to make it really work and help put the thing together.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
You know, it was quite a deal. I never made it up there one day. I feel bad about it. I just never made it up there. And then looking at the movie, I'm glad I wasn't there.
You didn't want to
They
be
took
one.
when they took care of me. I'd had a heart attack.
Did you get a chance to drive them?
I didn't drive any of these. The guys were trying to get me to drive one, and I said I know exactly what would happen if I got behind the wheel of one of these, and it would not end well. It's a bad omen. But I'd like to one day. So Wally Pankratz, he actually got me in one of his sprint cars, both at
Midget.
midget cars, both at Ventura.
Yeah, he
and-
does at school. Right?
Yeah.
And he had her come up.
That's good.
Yeah, so
Got it sideways.
yeah, I did get it sideways.
Yeah, we came out to your shop with the Hall of Fame group,
Yeah.
and I brought Oski with me, and he
Yeah.
was telling me about all
Jimmy.
the cars.
Yeah. You know,
So-
there's an interesting story. We have a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
you know, he's been there several times.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say I bought a collection. I got a collection from, I'll think of his name while I'm telling the story, but he lived in,
Dick Wallen?
no, not, it's another collection. He lives in Sebring. And I heard through a guy that he wanted to get rid of his stuff. And left his phone number, and I called him back, and I said, well, tell me a little bit about it. So he starts, you know, chronicling the stuff he has. And I said, what do you want for it? He says, nothing. He says, I'm on my way out, and this is gonna go in the trash. You know? I said, well, I have a friend in Jacksonville, and he could come down and pick it up, and give me your address. You know? Well, you could hear him fumbling around the wooden floor, this and that, and he was having trouble with his dress, and so I finally, and he says that I'm on my way out. I remember him saying I'm on my way out, so I didn't want to say, well, go get your driver's license and tell me, because that was probably a thing that was taking a real long time before this phone conversation. So I said, well, why don't you go outside and look on your house? He says, you know, I was thinking about that, but I'm in my underwear. So he did find the number, and between, you know, nowadays with computers and everything, we found the street.
Yeah.
And does that sound right? Yeah, that's it. So I had my buddy go down there. I paid him to drive down there, and probably 3 hours, something like that, and pick up all this stuff. I says, you bring your Suburban, because it sounds like it's a Suburban full. And so he had these photo binders, and I'm trying to think of his name. I'm embarrassed, but maybe I'll remember before I get done with it. And so I'm looking through the photo albums, and there's an envelope in there, business envelope, and I pull out a check, 1968. And it's double signature California Racing CRA, and it's for $5.
Yeah.
And I had it framed. I went and bought a frame and put the check, and Louis Espinoza is one of the signers. And he had his haircut, now don't laugh when I tell you this, but the same place I had my haircut. That's not a joke. So anyway, I made a copy and gave it to the gal and says, next time Louis is in, show him this. 1968, and this is probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it hadn't been cashed. And so the frame's sitting up there hanging on the wall right by the entrance of my shop, and Jimmy's there.
Right, him and I came over there, yeah.
Yeah, and he looks at it. He says, you know about this? So I'm telling him the story I'm telling you.
Right.
He says, no. Do you know about this? And I said, that's all I know. I found it in this photo album. He says, $2.50 was Hank Henry's. He got killed in the race.
Right.
That's the reason the check was never cashed.
Wow.
I said, Jimmy, you gotta either record that or write it.
Yeah.
I said, that's.
He sent you a letter on it, yeah.
I said, that's just, and so many things have happened like this with my collection.
Yeah.
Where guys see things and they have an addition to it, which is really neat.
Tell
And
the story.
they got it buried down in their garage or someplace, and they want to have it in my collection, which, I mean, I'm thrilled to do. So anyway, Jimmy writes a handwritten 1-page explanation of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And now the frame's that big. It's got the letter and the check and the envelope. But those are the things that happen that are really special to me, that you put the things together.
Sure.
Outside, before that, it was just an envelope and a check.
Yeah.
But Hank Henry got killed in that race, and he was gonna make $2.50.
Yeah.
Talk about racers. You know, but anyway, million stories, there's hundreds of stories and like that in my shop, and
Excellent.
it only gets better. The guy brings a little, I think it was in one of the credit pictures, a little yellow race car, and it had all these guys' signatures on it. And he was there at my place, and he saw the collection I have and the memorabilia, and he says, you know, I've got a little race car at home, about this big, with all kinds of signatures on it. He says, it'd be much better in your place than mine. And I said, he says, do you mind? And I says, no, I think it'd be great. I said, but really you got to identify and give me explain this whole thing. And he went, and you can't hardly read the signatures, but he went and found every one of them, put it in a letter, and it's hanging in my thing, and it's the neatest thing in the world. And there's several more examples of that. So that's the fun of it. And again, I'm sitting here running my mouth, and my granddaughter's the one that made the movie. So.
I don't mind.
But we're thrilled.
Emmett was your father,
Yeah,
right?
correct. Did you
I
know
knew your father for
Did you know Dad? Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah. You know he's been gone 47 years.
Yeah.
He died of lung cancer. He just couldn't put those darn cigarettes down. But
Yeah.
I came
He and
along.
my father were very good friends.
Yeah, good. My sister Rosemary's right here, and she's the second oldest, and I came along third. Our oldest sister is gone. We're missing. There was 9 of us. We're down to 6 now. 3 will be here. My brother Tim's got in. It'll be myself, my sister Rosemary, and my brother Tim, who's the youngest. Moore is the youngest. He's second youngest. But anyway, I came along chronologically in the family when things were rolling for Dad, and I'm the one that got as the son and loving machinery, and he has a contractor, loving his tractors and a racetrack and race cars.
Who did you say the yellow midget belonged to?
It belonged at one time Johnny Paul. It's the famous Johnny Paul rail job, you know, ran all over the Midwest. You know, and some big names drove that car
Right.
over the years. Thrilled to have it, you know, and I'm thrilled to have all the stuff that I have, and I bought it all for a reason.
Right.
And a lot of people in this room would go, like the Chapman car, 18th place at Indy. I mean, who wants that? But I wanted it because I knew my dad's car finished 17th. And I had a hell of a time at that particular time, which is probably 20 years ago, to try to find Dad's car. It's been a 20-year search since then, and no luck.
If
Outside of the engine.
If anyone finds it, let us know. We'll take you to dinner.
Yeah. At least. So.
Brenna, what was your favorite part about making the movie?
There were so many highlights. I definitely grew so much. One of the main highlights was learning so much about my great-grandfather, Emmett. A lot of people would come by set who live up in that area and just to check out the cars, and they remember the Carroll Speedway down in Southern California, which he had. And you know, listening to my grandfather talk, even on the way here, he came and picked me up from the airport this morning, and he was sharing all these stories with me about you know, his dad who came from Iowa, and all these stories about Iowa. And so much of making this film was listening to stories and having that influence the film. You know, there's so much storytelling embedded in racing, and so that's definitely something that I loved, was learning a lot about it. And there's nothing better than being, you know, outside surrounded by friends and people who believe in you and race cars. And that's what making this film was. It was like 10 days of just fun and making a movie and trying to tell a story. So.
Where did you do the movie?
Filmed it in Lompoc, California.
Sorry?
Lompoc.
By Vandenberg, you know, the air base.
The Air Force.
In that vicinity.
It's just above Santa Barbara,
Yeah.
if you're not familiar.
Yeah.
He sat on the porch. My brother, I talked to him here a couple of weeks ago, and they shot the SpaceX missile. No, not that one. Somebody shot a missile off at Vandenberg this the other day. And you sit on the front porch of his house there on the ranch, and it's like a bird's eye view of the rocket going off. So.
What was the budget for the film?
It was not a lot. But that's the thing. It's like you just have to make that dollar go so far in independent filmmaking. And a lot of independent filmmaking is people, you know, donating their time and energy and resources. So we didn't have a lot, but we tried to do our best and make every dollar last us. Like even he was mentioning how the inside of the barn you saw in the movie is not the inside of the barn of the exterior of the barn that you saw. It's the barn across the street. And the guy who owns that barn, I mean, he built sliding doors on his barn so that they would match the sliding doors exterior. And he just did that because he believed in us and really liked the story we were telling, and he let us redecorate his barn. And you know, so it's definitely a team effort to make it work.
The background to that was, when I was looking at it, it reminded me around the Tarzana area and
Yeah, this is way north.
area
Yeah, this is
out
way
there.
north of there. You know, this is north quite a ways. from
Yeah, I
Tarzana.
know right where it is.
Yeah. So a racer wants to get lucky someday. You want Brenna to hit it big in the movie business, and she sponsors cars. That's the match made in heaven.
I gotta sponsor myself first.
That's the match made in heaven. Her do really good in the movie business and become race car.
Icon district up there, so. You can,
Right in the middle of the Onion District?
That is, you can drive, when you drive through there, like you don't like the smell of onion, it'll kill you.
And it's interesting how this happens, but this whole thing with Dad being in the Hall of Fame wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the guy that just walked in, Chuck Fawcett. And I'll never be able to thank him enough for doing what he did.
I like the way you wrap the deuce down there, half and half.
It was really and fun that I was thinking about it when this whole thing happened. I'm going, damn, it's too bad it's not black. And I'm sitting there going, hell, in this day and age, you can wrap them. And so I wrapped the one half, and one half that Troy made it so famous, and one half that Dwayne made it so famous. So. And that was a really tough day for me when Dad sold it to Dwayne. You know, that was my pride and joy. And I'm thrilled that the car's still alive, if I can say that. Even though it still belongs to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And it's on loan to me, and it's been on loan for about 7 or 8 years, if not more. And tried to buy it from them. They wanted me to insure it because it's at my place, and I said, well, what do you want it insured for? And they told me, and I said, let me just write you a check. They didn't want to do that. And so I had that board made up that's sitting on to the right of it. The board on the left is a board that my oldest son, her dad, and I came back here in 1992 and presented to Troy Ruttman when he was inducted. And those are the real certificates for fast time, not copies. They were the real ones. And pictures that I had. And the board to the right, looking at the car, I put that together, and you can see on the bottom of it says Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum. If it goes back to them, the board will go with it, and if it stays at home, that'll change at the bottom.
The picture on the board on the right from Pomona, I was there at that time. Most people don't even know that fairgrounds ever had,
Yeah.
you know, race cars run onto it.
And that one of those 2 nights, Bud Rose protested the car, and Luigi Lazowski was the head of AAA at the time, and they loaded up. They went over and put the seals on the leather straps, sealed it with a thing like you couldn't get into it, right? And so we took it over to his shop. I mean, I'm 12 years old, and I was with Bob Phillips and my dad, and we went over to the shop. You know, they cut the little wires, lift up the hood, and you know, you go down through the cylinder and you know, stroke it, and you go through the side and get this the diameter of the cylinder. And I remember Luigi, you know, and they're all sitting there with their slide rules and going on, and Luigi says, Bud Rose was there when they checked the car. He said, Bud, it's over, but not what you're looking for. Because Bud said that no legal 220 could go by me like that. And that's when he made the comment. He says, it's over, Bud, but it's not what you're looking for. It's not a 270. So
I think it was pretty interesting that it was about dirt track racing, because dirt has meant so much to the Malloy family with your dad's business, your business.
Yeah. There's nothing like dirt, you know, and when they pulled it away from Irwindale, the Turkey Night, they pulled it away from Irwindale and took it out to Paris. I mean, that was a big night, you know, because it was back on the dirt, you know. And even though Ventura is small, it's a big show in Ventura because of the dirt. It's just something about dirt racing.
Excellent.
You know.
All right, probably got time for one more question if anybody has one.
What was
Your
the
cousin has a
32 Ford in the beginning? What was the 32 Ford you saw at the very beginning?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't there a 32 Ford you saw with the license plate at the very beginning before the movie started?
That's a Chapman.
That's yours.
Is that-
Yeah, we put that on. Is that your Survivor car?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have I think 432 Fords. You know,
Yeah.
I have a 3-window that I ran 175 at Bonneville, and I have they're pretty rugged. My 30, they all run great. It's just that they're not all pimped out, if I can say it that way. You can touch mine. One of them's got Culver City mags, you know, brand Culver City mags, and it's got lobster brakes in front. And people that know, it's this all steel car, and people who know will walk by 2 or 3 little pimped out cars and see that one and stop. You know, it's for real, and it goes like hell.
That yellow 17 car that Johnny Paul had,
Yeah.
there was a yellow 17 car that was in To Please a Lady.
Mhm.
It was painted almost identical to
Yeah,
that car.
and that could be,
Johnny
it
Paul's.
could be the car. Now, I have the Don Lee car that
What?
was used in the movie for the still pictures.
Yeah.
in the stage pictures, I have that car.
Do you really?
Yeah, it belonged to Don Lee, and then he sold it to MGM, and then later was sold to Joe Gimsa, and I have that car.
My dad was head of the getting all the right cars and everything. I don't know what you call it in the movie deal, but
Yeah.
I'd go out there with him, and he had a 46 Dodge pickup truck, and I could sit in it and, while they were making the movies at Please the Lady and the Big Wheel. So it was,
And the Big Wheel was shot, a lot of that was, I shouldn't say a lot. A few of the scenes were shot at Carroll Speedway.
oh yeah.
Dad took me down there at night one time.
We did
to
Carroll Speedway, and
yeah.
some of them were shot at, they had some of it was actually shot at Saugus too, at Benelli
Yeah,
Stadium.
Benelli Ranch, yeah. Yeah, I went up to Pinelli Jones one time and I said, I got more miles on me in a half-mile dirt track than you do, and he's looking at me like, who in the hell are you? You know? I mean, I was down there on my dad's track, you know, just 8, 9, 10 years old, and they had an old pickup truck that belonged to the company, his excavation company, and I had free range of that. I mean, there was a deal that my dad made with me, or I made with my dad, depending on how you want to say it, is I could drive that thing anywhere on the racetrack, around the track, out in the parking lot, wherever. There was a couple things. I could have it in reverse, neutral, and low. And if you ever caught me out of low gear going forward, I wasn't going to drive till I was 16. And I wasn't allowed to race. I was forbidden to race.
The first
And then-
midget race I was lucky enough to go to was Turkey Night in 1945, right after the war.
Yeah.
I had just turned 5 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it was a childhood, you know,
My dad
I mean,
worked
with my,
officials at the.
yeah, with my sister here, my older sister, I had as a son, I had a childhood to die for.
Yeah.
I mean, kids my age and around me had no clue of the things I was able to do because of the property and him, particularly my dad, who allowed me to do these things. I think Brenna mentioned, he was born in New Hampton, Iowa. So if you had a son and he was capable of not hurting himself and getting on machinery, he turned you loose. And he turned me loose, Rosemary.
But my sister and I got to have all the free food we wanted in the snack spots.
But
And
anyway,
catch crawdads down in the swamp that was behind the racetrack.
Crawdads, yeah. We'd go down there and catch
It was our
crawdads
own
in the
little
slough,
play
right behind
yard.
turns, as they say nowadays, 3 and 4. In the old days, it was turn 2. But, yeah, it was, but anyway, getting back to Parnelli, so he says, like, who in the hell are you? I go, well, I rolled it, I wheel rolled it, I disked it, I bladed it, I watered it. I wasn't out there in anger like he was, you know, winning races, but anyway, yeah, I had a good time as a young guy.